On day 21 of the Iran war, the conflict remains intense, with Israel escalating strikes and Iran threatening zero restraint if energy facilities are attacked again. The U.S. role is deeply entangled, but its long-term commitment is uncertain as allies grow divided and global energy markets destabilize. Israel's objectives may also be isolating the U.S. diplomatically. Joining us to dwell on these developments is Ambassador Mohan Kumar, former senior diplomat. Thank you very much, Ambassador Mohan Kumar. Now, how significant is Israel's signal of a possible ground offensive in the war, and what military or political consequences will such a move have?
Thank you very much, Mark, for having me. No, I think any indication even of ground operations will send the oil prices into a tizzy. It will lead Iran to escalate this war to really unacceptable proportions because they wouldn't want a ground operation. I just want to break down for your audience exactly what a ground operation means. A ground operation can only mean one thing. It can only mean that you got the American or Israeli troops or joint troops trying to take over Karg Island, which is the economic nerve center for Iran because 90% of the oil leaves from Karg Island, 60% of oil is processed in Karg Island, and at any given point of time, 10 oil tankers are parked there. So you take over Karg Island, literally you cut off the economic lifeline for Iran. So I don't think Iran would want it. So I'm sincerely hoping, and perhaps hoping against hope at this stage, that this is escalation to de-escalate. I don't know if you've heard this. What happens in several of these things is that all parties indulge in brinkmanship and they then escalate so that eventually they are able to de-escalate with some face-saving measure. So I'm hoping against hope that that is the case because otherwise I can see only negative implications for everybody. Everybody will emerge a loser from this war. I don't see winners.
And talking about that brinkmanship, President Trump's comments on the element of surprise. How long is the U.S. realistically going to be expected to remain military engaged in this war is the question.
It is very hard to read President Trump's mind, but if common sense and rationality were to be the guiding principle of speculation, I have to say everything points to the US now declaring victory and walking away. That would be the wisest course of action because they have achieved some significant military objectives. Number one, they have managed to degrade Iran's military infrastructure considerably. Second, Iran's proxies have been defenestrated and defanged to a great extent. And frankly, Iran has been substantially weakened that it will take years and years before it can rise from the ashes. I do not see, therefore, that these objectives are insignificant. These are significant objectives. So it is a question of taking a judgment call and saying that any further operation, including ground forces, I'm afraid, Mark, the costs will far exceed the benefits. I don't see the benefits because you cannot really get rid of a country which has close to 100 million people. It's a very, very large country. So you cannot really bombard every square kilometer of Iran. So the right thing to do, in my view, would be a diplomatic solution, declare victory and get out.
But Ambassador Mohan Kumar, Iran is retaliating as we see. It's hitting Gulf energy sites. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. It's under Iran's control. How vulnerable are energy markets? As we know, prices are going up. But what contingency plans should countries be looking for now to stabilize supply? We are seeing that there is a coalition coming together to try and see that ships are moving in the Strait of Hormuz.
Energy markets will stabilize only if they know for a fact that the Strait of Hormuz will open in the near future. I think I have to say I am a little bit surprised at the way energy markets are reacting because frankly, $108 for Brent crude as we speak is not too bad. I
Yes.
thought that with the continuation of war, it could have even gone to 120 or 130. So, frankly, maybe there are a lot of people thinking like me that listen, it is impossible to conceive that everybody wants the continuation of this war, meaning the actors, that is the US, Israel, and Iran. I cannot believe that they want an indefinite continuation of this conflict, and therefore everybody is assuming that at some point it will come to an end. The Israeli Prime Minister is on record having said yesterday that it will come to an end sooner than you think. President Trump has, of course, indulged in mixed messaging, but he too has said he will want to see the end of this conflict. So, my sense is that this is escalation for de escalation. And by
Okay.
the way, even Iran only says there will be zero restraint if our energy
Yes, that's
infrastructure
right.
is bombed. I mean, there was one bombing by Israel of the gas field to which President Trump said that he had no knowledge of it and he warned Israel not to do this again.
Right.
Since then, what you are seeing is, of course, ballistic missiles, bombing, etc., but the energy infrastructure in Iran has been untouched after the bombing. If
Okay.
that continues, I don't believe Iran too will want a serious escalation of the conflict.
Indeed, and but Israel is deliberately pursuing strategies that risk isolating Washington, from its traditional partners, with its consistent policy of targeted assassinations. But what impact will all this have on Israel? I mean, trying to isolate the United States uh, from its own partners, and because I mean, is Israel actually counting on the support of all these nations because it was created, as a state of Israel after World War II by these nations in the first place?
My sense is that at some point, Israel will have to accept that it depends a lot on the U.S. and it really has to depend on U.S. indulgence. Yes, there will be times when the two countries act independently of each other, and I'm willing to concede to you that this seems to be one such moment. But if the US brings its political, diplomatic, and military weight to bear on Israel, I do not believe Israel, even under Benjamin Netanyahu, can resist that kind of pressure. Israel knows that it will need US to be on its side. I don't think otherwise it can prosecute this war for an indefinite period. So, for some time, you might see Israel and the US doing things differently or at cross purposes, but at some point they will have to come together because Israel needs the US more than the US needs Israel.
Now, you did talk about Tehran warning of zero restraint, but there are escalating attacks across the Gulf. Now, how likely is the broader regional war going to keep the U.S. engaged? Because, after all, the U.S. is the net provider of security to those nations.
Yes, I think that is the one question that is on everybody's mind. It's a very tough question to answer because the Gulf countries, I think, are seeing that their patience is being tested by Israel by the minute. And they bought all these expensive equipment from the West, particularly the US. US bases are located in those countries. So it would be ironic and it would be actually questioning their defense preparedness if the Gulf countries just keep quiet and start accepting attacks. The one factor that might militate against Gulf countries retaliating against Iran is the Arab street. It would still be a problem, Mark, for a lot of people living in the Gulf countries to contemplate an attack on a fellow Muslim nation and in favor of Israel. I'm talking of the Arab street in
Right.
these countries. So far, the Arab street has been quiet. but that could be a factor which weighs heavily in how the Gulf countries react to the bombing from Iran.
We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador Mohan Kumar, for putting things into perspective for us.